SparkMES, an MES accelerator for ignition.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be diving into the scheduling package of SparkMES today. My name is Ellie Allen Bathe, and I'm a content marketing manager here at Flexware. Before we get started, a couple quick housekeeping notes. First, if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, feel free to drop those in the questions tab of your toolbar. We'll answer those as we go through, and we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. And then secondly, today's session is being recorded. We'll make that link available to you shortly after we wrap up today. Now that that's out of the way, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. I'm joined today by Eric Moorman. He's an architect of SparkMES, and he's been with Flexware for just over 7 years. Eric, take it away.
Thanks, Ellie, and thanks everybody for joining. So today we are going to be continuing our journey through the different packages of SparkMES. As Ellie said, we've been going through a lot of different ones, and just to kind of recap those, there we go. Just wanted to look at, so this is all the different packages of SparkMES that we offer. And with that, you can kind of see on a lot of these, we've made it through about half of these at this point. So we've talked about OEE, inventory, quality, track and trace. So talked about a lot of these different packages and the kind of benefits they can bring, showed a little bit of the functionality you can get from those. Today, we are going to be expanding and continuing our journey through all these different packages to talk about the scheduling package. So what is the scheduling package? So the scheduling package offers two primary functions. First is for order scheduling and production scheduling, right? So maybe you want to know, you have a bunch of orders that are coming in and you want to be able to plan those out to know if you're going to be able to meet production targets or something like that. The scheduling package allows you to schedule those out over time based on information that maybe you're getting from the ERP or other packages inside the system, whatever it may be. The other part of it comes with shift scheduling. So shift scheduling is focused more around the idea, instead of scheduling orders, now we're scheduling, hey, when should you be running? This can be important for OEE especially, so we know the plan times of when you're supposed to be running. But it also lets you, is important for knowing when you can run orders and things like that, right? So all this kind of ties into each other in a lot of different ways. The scheduling part, the shift scheduling is also very nice for if you have more dynamic shifts and you want to be able to change those at more of a runtime, then this package can be very helpful. And kind of going along with this, with both of those, this also allows for you to schedule your breaks so you can know when you're not going to be running, which again is important with production scheduling so that you know you can make sure you're tracking when orders are realistically going to be done, because you need to know when you're not going to be running. And also it lets you get an idea of, hey, what's my actual progress as far as like order production versus where am I actually at on the timeline, right? So you can kind of get an idea of, hey, am I running ahead or am I running behind, and start to adjust the schedule accordingly. So you're here, but why maybe you want to actually have the scheduling package? What may be some things you're thinking to yourself that would drive you towards wanting to use this package? I think the most popular one, right, or the biggest one, is just saying that, I need to have a simple way to plan for what production will happen on the floor. I need to know, am I going to be able to hit my production targets? I need to be able to know when do I need to have certain stations up and running, and all that fun stuff, right? When do I need to be going? Another part of this too, when we talk about the shift scheduling, is I have very variable shifts that I need to manage. So instead of having a very standard 24/7 shift schedule, maybe when you're running weekends changes, right? Or maybe your shifts are a little bit more dynamic as it depends on your demand, right? The scheduling package can kind of help out with that. We already kind of talked about the other ones here of, being able to see, hey, am I going to be able to hit my demands? Am I going to be able to, based on all the orders I'm getting, are we going to be okay to accept more orders, or how maybe do we need to prioritize some over others? And then also being able to prioritize the work to the floor, right? Especially if you're using the track and trace package. We've talked on the track and trace package, how you can see orders and select orders you're working on. The scheduling package can allow you to prioritize those orders that are then showing on the screen there for the operators. So this is kind of how the scheduling package can play in and some things that you may be thinking about. But let's go ahead and hop in and actually show a little bit of what the scheduling package is all about. So with that, let me open up here. So the scheduling package overall is just really this is the hub of it, right? Where I can see my overall schedule. and what's currently happening inside of my plan. So there's two different modes for the scheduling package, which I kind of talked about. There's shift scheduling mode and there's order scheduling mode. Currently I'm in shift scheduling mode. Shift scheduling mode is the much more simple of the two. This lets me just see what are my overall shifts. These shifts that we're seeing on here, so we have these 8-hour shifts, first shift, second shift, and we have a break in here. These shifts are automatically generated based on the shift like configuration screen that we have in the configuration workstation, which we showed as part of the OEE package video, where you say, hey, this is how a typical week looks, right? Well, that typical week gets baked out over time and gets shown on here as to what's actually set to happen. Now, where the benefits of the scheduling package come into play is that maybe this is what you set was going to happen, right? This is what a typical week looks like. But maybe for whatever reason, right, we decided that we're going to have an extra break in here for this first schedule, this 8-hour shift schedule. We're going to shorten this first shift and we're going to add like a lunch break or something here. I don't know. The scheduling package allows us to actually do that configuration. So I could just go on here and I could click on my first shift here that I want to change. And I could just drag this on over here. We'll put it there at 11 a.m. So now that now this shift is actually shortened down, this automatically, if you're using our OEE package, this automatically updates your OEE calculations, right? To expect that you're not going to be running outside of this time. And then if I wanted to note this as a break and to note kind of what's going on here, I could then go over here and add a schedule exclusion. I'm going to say my reason is downtime, but you can see there's other things in here that are pretty popular, like changeovers, right? Maybe you need to allow for changeover times between orders, especially, you know, weekends, that kind of thing. I'm going to choose a break here. I'm going to say we're going to call this lunch. I could choose what specific schedules to put it on. I'll just go and put it on 8. Maybe I'll just do all of them, right? I'll just do all the schedules. And then today I am going to set it for 11 a.m. until 12 p.m., which I think is noon. So, and with this now I'm setting that schedule exclusion, right? So again, this is time that's not going to be run, that we can make sure our shifts are scheduled around. It'll affect our OEE and all that fun stuff. So we'll go ahead and hit submit here. And you'll see that that adds that schedule exclusion for all of my different locations. Now I could have just selected just the one schedule. That would have been fine. But because I did this, it just applied it to everywhere. So, and really that's really what the shift scheduling part of this is. Pretty lightweight, but letting you kind of make those different changes in there. I'll kind of show it with the order scheduling portion, but you can also add new shifts. So I don't really have a good schedule for that here, but let's say, for example, you're a 24/5 facility where you don't typically work the weekends. Your shift schedule that you have for every week would be baking out this schedule that you're seeing here for the overall week. But then you decide, okay, production is not going well, so we need to add on a weekend, which happens sometimes, right? So if you wanted to add that weekend shift, you'd be able to go to this plus button here to just like add that new shift in. And I'll kind of show that in a little bit when we get to the order side. Flow is very similar, but it would let you add on those new different shifts to add production to change again. You're just changing the shift schedules and how you're planning to work for the week. So that's what the shift schedule stuff is doing. More lightweight of the two. Now what I want to do is I want to transition over to where there's a couple more different features in there where we're going to the order scheduling mode. So I'm going to go and up my schedule mode. I'm going to switch over to order schedule. And now that I'm on order scheduling mode, the UI, the interface is all very similar. Here on the main screen, I can still see my overall schedule. I can change my date range up here if I wanted to, so I can see like my overall date range that I'm looking at, and all that fun stuff. So I can also change, if you ever want to change your filters to say like, oh, I want to filter by 3 hours, or you can do that, or you could say 1 hour, which is what I've been in. This is the mode I like the most typically. So I can get a little more granular. You can get even as granular as a minute. Never really done that one before, but you could. And then I can kind of see all the shifts, the orders that are currently scheduled. So I already went ahead and before this, I had scheduled a couple orders on here, and you can kind of see those on the screen here on how these orders are running. Now, if we're looking around on this a little bit more, so right now I have 3 different locations that are set to be that I'm scheduling for. These locations can be anything, right? It can be any type of location you've configured in your production model. So in the production model, you can mark different locations as schedulable. and that allows them to have a schedule configured them. So that means that this can be used for machine level scheduling. It can be used for line level scheduling. It really just depends on how you're setting up your routes and how you want to actually view the world, right? If I wanted to see more locations, I could hit the select location and I could choose from all the different list of locations that I have that are schedulable. So I can change what locations I'm currently wanting to look at if I wanted to. So I like the ones I have right now. We're mainly going to be focusing on this wet mixing and dry mixing. So I'm going to leave it the way it is, but you could always change it if you wanted to. Now, on the left bar over here, we're in order scheduling mode, so we want to be scheduling some orders into the system, right? So we need to know what orders are actually available for us to schedule. So these orders over here, these are the different orders that have come into the system that are ready to be scheduled. You can see some of them already marked as scheduled, saying that they've already been put onto the timeline here. So I can always see those and I could change those if I wanted to. But then I see that there's some here that need to still be scheduled. Now, where did these orders come from? So these orders can come from a couple different places. So first off, you could use our production tracking workstation, right, which kind of comes with the track and trace, but you'd also get it as a part of the scheduling if you didn't have track and trace, where you can actually create the orders inside of the system. So I could go in and I could say inside of Spark, I'm going to create orders so that we know about what they are, right? So that's cool. I could go ahead and create orders that way. Another way, and I'd say it's maybe the more common way that we see it, and just kind of depends on the customer, is that sometimes we'll also be receiving these orders from ERP. So if your ERP system has order information that it's propagating down to the system, those orders will be automatically showing up over here and be ready for us to schedule. So we have our orders over here that are ready to be put onto the line. Now let's say we want to go ahead and start scheduling some of these, right? So I'm going to go ahead and schedule one of these. So let's say I'm going to go down to this order here, this order 3. If I want to schedule this, I could hit plus and then add it manually, but I'm going to use some of the auto scheduling capabilities of this, or I'd say pseudo auto scheduling capabilities of this. And I'm just going to hit the schedule button here. So what this is going to do is you'll see on here that this is now showing the route for this order. So showing different information about the order. So the name of this, it's already automatically populated with the order information. So this is the order that we're currently looking at. I can then choose what location I'm wanting to schedule for. I'm going to go ahead and choose wet mixing. And then on wet mixing, I can then, now that I'm scheduling for wet mixing, I need to choose when do I want the order to start. So this tool is not like a full automated scheduler where it's going to like automatically bake it out. It can become one, but scheduling rules change depending on customer to customer. So that would be a discussion about learning your rules and how those can factor into the system. But out of the box, we try to use some of the context we have to have these like very generic rules that we follow to maybe not suggest start dates all the time, but to at least give you end dates. So if I'm looking here, right, we could enter the start date, although I guess we are suggesting one on here. So I can enter the start date I want. I'm going to leave it here for right now. Actually, I don't think I'm going to leave it there for right now. So this is because it's the current time. So here, though, in the auto, we're using some of the order information that we received to actually calculate an end date based on this start date. So with this order, it gave us the quantity. So the quantity of 100. So we know the order quantity is 100 for this. We also know, based on the configurations in our system, that based on the part number that this order is running, that we produce 1 unit per minute. Right? So we can take that, now we can kind of use that information to say how long is this order going to take. We can also factor in a proposed efficiency. So we're going to say that we are using 80% efficiency for this, right? That we ever executes at 100% efficiency. And so we can use that in our calculations to calculate this end date you're seeing down here. Ellie, was there a question?
Yeah, quick question for you. Can you integrate planned maintenance windows into the calendar or schedule?
You can. So there's a couple ways you would be doing that. One is you could add that as a schedule exclusion, like I showed before, through the breaks, if it's more of like an ad hoc sort of thing. If it's something that's more planned, then you would be able to you would do that through the, like if it's like a weekly thing or something like that, you would do that through the configuration workstation, the schedule tool, the shift configuration tool, I mean, to set those up so they would come up in a recurring way.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Cool. All right, so I got my start date, I got my end date. Now, one thing you may notice, this start date was just showing like the current time that I can schedule that, but I already have an order scheduled at the current time, so I don't necessarily want that. One thing that's important to look at down here, and again, this is maybe something you would want to auto suggest, it depends on, but right now we're manually having them do it. I can see down here the order context. So when you're scheduling an order, we all know that when you're scheduling an order, it's not just as easy as saying, hey, we're just going to go schedule it for this location, and that's all that matters, right? No order executes in a vacuum at a location. There's all the context of, well, where else does this order have to run at, right? And so what we can do is based on any routing information we get from the ERP, or in this case, since I'm using it with our track and trace package, where we're configuring the routing information in our system, I know where this is going to need to run at, right? So I know that's going to go wet mixing to dry mixing. It looks like this one actually has dry mixing twice for some reason, which is cool. So I can see what locations it needs to run at. I can see the run rates at each of those locations. How long is it going to take to produce one part at each of those locations? So I can see that information. And I can also see that this hasn't been scheduled at any of these locations. All of this is good context for me to know so that when I'm baking out all my different location schedules, I make sure I'm scheduling them appropriately and I have all the relationships the correct way. Now, what this will also do is this will give us some suggested start dates for these. Now, these suggested start dates are just very simple rules right now. It's based off of, hey, what else is running on the line? So you can see this one says 412 is when I should start this. Well, that's because their last order on wet mixing ends at 412, right? So it says that I should maybe consider starting it there. But then it takes it a step further where it kind of says, hey, based on the run rates and based on proposed efficiencies and stuff that we have in the system, we're then going to say that, okay, well, if we start this order, then the time in which we would probably want to start at dry mixing would be at this time right here. So some different times that we can factor into that. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to schedule it wet mixing here. If I want to accept this time, I'm just going to go ahead and hit this button right here. So I can hit these little icons here to just set my schedule to be for that, whatever that suggestion was. So I set it to wet mixing at 412 with my proposed efficiencies and all that fun stuff. So now my end date updates to be 6/17, I suppose that is. So you can kind of see, like, yes, this isn't like a completely automated scheduler, but it serves as the founding blocks for building those kind of tools. And we're using simple rules around when these things can actually start. So based on that, I'm going to look at that. You can also change your color if you want to of these things. So if you want to have a really, pretty calendar, if I want to make this green, maybe you want to color code this for some reason. I'm actually not going to use green. That seems like a bad color. I'll just go back to blue. So I can set the color that I want to have for these. And then I can go ahead and hit, when I'm ready to actually schedule it, I can hit commit. And so what that's going to do is that's going to then put this onto the schedule as something that is now ready to run. So we now have our schedule baked out, and you're kind of just going through this flow of adding the things onto the schedule. A couple other things one other thing you may have noticed on this that's kind of useful. You'll see these little progression bars on here. You'll notice that they all have percentages. That's because for this demo, just since I don't have any of these orders being simulated right now, I'm just setting a production count for them through some simulation. But these bars, what they actually show is going to be the amount that has actually been produced against this order. The goal of this is that it's showing you that, hey, at this piece of equipment, what is the actual progress I've made against this order? And you'll notice that there's a blue bar here too, this blue line. This blue line denotes what the current time is. So because of that, when you're using those two in conjunction, it kind of gives you a rough visual of how am I actually doing against where I'm actually supposed to be right now. If the progression bar is behind the blue bar, then I need to maybe be speeding up because I'm a little bit behind. But if it's ahead, then I'm doing great, right? And I want to actually keep moving forward. So again, trying to give that feedback so you can kind of know what's going on. The scheduling package will not auto adjust itself out of the box. Again, we can add those types of rules. Those are part of the customizations for your implementation, but that requires some knowledge of what those rules are for your specific company. How do your schedulers work? That kind of thing. But it does let you at least see that, hey, maybe I should be, making updates and noting that behind and doing those things myself. So yeah. One of the other thing I'll show here really quick, just to kind of show what it's doing here. If I hit this update again, just kind of shows I went into the schedule event because I never scheduled it for dry mixing. If I go into dry mixing here, I can then see that I'm now editing that event, so I could then move that order around if I wanted to. But I can also take this and now say, okay, well, I could look down here and see that it's been scheduled at wet mixing, which I know because I'm on wet mixing right now. And then I can say, okay, well, I want to schedule it now for dry mixing. This one's kind of giving me a weird time. I'm going to go ahead and do this one down here. So it's saying, hey, it's not scheduled at dry mixing here. And this is the suggested time, which looks like actually the correct one. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the schedule here to choose an end time that I want to use. It adjusts it to dry mixing for me. So kind of with one click, I'm kind of saying like, hey, now I want to schedule it for the next machine, essentially. And then I can hit commit, and that'll schedule it for the next piece of equipment. So it can kind of speed up your workflow of doing the different routes, so you don't have to necessarily put, your schedulers still need to verify it, right? But they can use some of the tools to kind of know when they want to schedule the next one. So, yeah. So with that, I guess one other thing here too, if you ever need to adjust these orders, right? Same thing with the shift scheduling. You notice you're falling behind. I need to move these around a little bit. Maybe I see that this first order is going to take a little bit longer to run. I could just drag these orders back if I wanted to, and then expand this order out. So you can kind of use the same tools we showed in the shift scheduling to drag orders in and out, to move them around if I need to, and all that fun stuff. And this order context we're adding from this screen can be used completely isolated, right? But it plays into other packages of the system in a lot of ways, right? So it can be used if you have the track and trace package. It can be used to actually help prioritize the orders that we need to be showing to the operator to say, hey, you should be working on this right now, and kind of give those suggestions to them. With OEE, it can also be used to give targets, right? Like, hey, I know now what my target for the day is because I know my orders, I know their run rates, so I kind of know how many I should be producing. And we can use that to kind of set, like, here's the target outfeed or target good parts that should be being produced to affect your performance and things like that. So, yeah, so this package plays into a lot of things in a lot of different ways. So, I think with that, that's really the main content I wanted to cover today. So Elliot, I don't know if we've gotten any other questions.
Yep, we have a couple questions here, but if you have any others, feel free to drop those in the questions tab and we'll start answering those. So first one here is, can the scheduling package be used without other packages like track and trace or OEE?
Yeah, so it can definitely be used without other packages and can be used in isolation. A lot of it just depends on what you're wanting to use it for, right? Obviously, using some of the other packages can kind of empower more, tools inside of it, but we can also receive some of that information from other systems as well. Like, for example, right, if I edit this order here, you can see, or maybe I'll just do this one, right? Let's just do this. You can see, right, we're pulling in the units per. I can pull, we're seeing the quantity, we're seeing efficiencies, right? These kind of things can be stuff that you just you just put in manually, right? But it also can be things that we're receiving from the track and trace package, or we're receiving from the OEE package in the case of the efficiency, right? Or maybe it's something we're receiving from an ERP if you're using the ERP package, right? So yeah, so it can definitely be used by itself, but lots of way it plays together with other packages if you want to kind of, I'd say, enhance the functionality of it.
Awesome. And then our other question here is, are the rules for schedule suggestions able to be changed?
Yeah, so the scheduling package of SparkMES follows the same pattern that we've talked about for a lot of the other packages. Where this is kind of a starter kit for getting going inside in deploying your scheduling implementation, right? So this is purely just a landing point, the stuff you're getting day one, right? So from this point, everything here is customizable, right? So, oh, hey, we're using the rules of saying, we're just using simple rules of like, we're going to use the efficiency, we're going to use the quantity and the run rate, and that's all we're going to do, right? And we're going to bake it out based off of that. Very simple, but maybe there's rules of like, okay, well, I know that, for example, this customer, right, is going to be somebody that takes priority over this one, right? So I should be prioritizing their orders first, right? Or, oh, hey, depending on the piece of equipment, right, the run rate's changing, which of course we could actually do out of the box as well. But there's these types of rules that you kind of know, that your schedulers know. They have a lot of knowledge in their heads of how their facility runs and how they want to build their schedules. So a big part of this would be taking that knowledge and building out those rules to kind of enhance this. So something we do almost every time we deploy scheduling package. So.
Awesome. Okay, a few more here. This one is, what kind of tag structure is created that we can pull from to customize an overview?
So to customize the overview, I assume you're meaning like being able to customize what the schedule is doing. I'm a little confused about the question here, I guess. So all of this data, I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. So with all this data is just.
Sorry, to clarify here, Eric, they said reporting to higher ups.
Got it. Yes. So all of this data is stored inside of a SQL database. So be able to be leveraged that way. We could always write the data to a tag structure if you wanted to, but it would just all be in a database, storing the history of all the schedule events that have happened in your system, as well as if you're using the other packages, things like OEE that's based off of it, and all that fun stuff. So production counts through track and trace, these kind of things can all be leveraged through it. So, but it's all run through the database, not through the tag structure necessarily.
Awesome. Next one here is, you mentioned interaction with ERP and maintenance modules of external apps. What about interfacing with advanced scheduling optimization, such as finite forward scheduling?
Yeah, so for that advanced auto scheduling stuff, that is definitely not something we have out of the box. But if you do have other schedulers, like schedule tools like that, we can always integrate, provide context to them, as long as they have a way to talk over APIs. Ignition is great because it can connect to pretty much anything. Where there's a will, there's a way with it. So we can definitely leverage that. We've done that before, where we've integrated with some external scheduling tools to give us the schedule back, and then we would integrate it back into this package. Again, the main purpose of that being that it already has the tendrils into other parts of the system. But we're using maybe a more advanced tool to do some more like AI-based scheduling or advanced scheduling or whatever you're doing. So, yep.
Great. And then last one here is, do you have the progress scorecard or dashboard how schedules are progressing out of this package?
So I think this dashboard would really be a big part of that, to kind of see kind of what an overview of how your orders are against where you're actually at right now with these bars. If you needed a different report, we could always build one inside of Ignition, or your team could build one in Ignition using the data that you're getting, or maybe a BI report if you wanted to. For out of the box, that would be this view where you're seeing the progress bars to kind of know how you're doing against it. If you have our track and trace package, then you do see a couple other things around production metrics of like, or I guess OEE as well, right? Where you can kind of see that, hey, for these orders also, how much scrap did we produce, right? Or how many things were out of spec or that kind of thing. So that can add more context to it as well. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer the question. So kind of, I think.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. If you have any other questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly at ellie.allenbathe@flexware.com, or you can respond to the email I'll be sending you shortly. We can also get you set up with a personalized demo through that email as well. So please reach out if you're using Ignition and looking for a quick and cost-effective path to MES functionality. Other than that, if you're looking to learn more about our kitting or shipping packages, we have that webinar coming up next. That'll be on February 25th. You can get signed up for that at flexwareinnovation.com/events. And yeah, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us today.
Ready to start your Spark journey? Learn more about SparkMES at sparkmes.io.